I want to bring on Laura Loomer because she has so many insights to share with us about this. As stated in the beginning, Laura is a very influential investigative journalist with a close proximity to the Trump White House. She's become a strong outside voice in the personnel debates, ideological disputes, and the broader strategic conversations on the right and in the administration. Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
The first question that I have for you, because you've spent a lot of time talking about this and tracking what everyone is saying, what is going on with Tucker Carlson? Because it seemed like 2 years ago you couldn't predict that this was going to happen, but here Tucker Carlson is. What do you think has happened? What do you think he is trying to accomplish?
Well, it's pretty obvious to anybody who's ever watched Tucker Carlson or seen the progression of his political career and his commentary on Fox News that he's done a total 180 on his political philosophy. You can look at clips, and there's a lot of people out there actually who have been putting these side by side clips, comparing the statements made by the individuals that you mentioned just a couple of moments ago, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, and they show statements that they made several years ago and they compare it to statements that they're now saying. The only one who's actually really been consistent the entire time is Nick Fuentes because, well, like you said, his views have always really been the same. He is who he says he is, right? And we kind of know what he represents. But Tucker Carlson has, since going independent and leaving Fox News, had to really find his own way. He had to secure funding. He had to raise money for his venture, Tucker Carlson News Network. And where did he go to acquire that money? Well, he went to the Islamic community and he received a $15 million contribution from an individual by the name of Omid Malik, who's half Pakistani and half Iranian. And so the question needs to be asked, has Tucker Carlson and his sharp pivot into defending Islam, into criticizing Israel? I mean, and it's not even just criticism of Israel. I think that we can all admit that Tucker Carlson has now engaged in full-blown demonization of the Jewish people. As you just mentioned, he's having people on his program who are engaged in World War II revisionism, trying to sell the idea that Hitler wasn't really so bad after all. And maybe, just maybe, the Americans should have allowed for the Germans to win World War II. Who does this serve, right? Who does it serve when Tucker Carlson has the president of Iran on to deny the fact that the Iranians were implicated in the assassination attempts on President Trump? President Trump in his own campaign have stated that the Iranians were involved in the attempted assassinations on President Trump's life. You think that President Trump doesn't know who tried to assassinate him? Whose interest is it when when Tucker Carlson rather travels to Qatar to interview officials with the Qatari royal family who are actively involved in funding anti-American sentiment on college campuses? You have the Trump administration talking about how they want to penalize the universities for creating a climate that is fostering anti-Semitism, fostering jihadist activity on college campuses. And if we look at the funding sources of this, it's coming from Qatar. So clearly, Tucker Carlson is interested in undermining President Trump's agenda, and he is not intellectually consistent. He is not ideologically consistent because his opinions have completely flipped. And you don't change your views. You don't do a 180 turn without being heavily influenced. And so I've asked this question, what is Tucker Carlson being influenced by? Is he being influenced by money? Personally, I think he is. I broke a story a couple of months ago about how Tucker Carlson's name appeared in FARA with a company named Luminate, and his name was listed in FARA, where you have to register if you're involved in foreign lobbying or influencing policy on behalf of a foreign country, next to Qatar for the interview with the Iranians. And so Tucker Carlson and Neil Patel, who works with him at Tucker Carlson News Network, never really answered my question when I publicly called on them to release the financial documentation to show who paid for the trip to Qatar, because I received a tip from a source that said that when Tucker Carlson traveled to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, he did not actually pay his own way. And so the question is who's paying for Tucker Carlson to go to Saudi Arabia, to go to Qatar, to go to the UAE, to meet with these Islamic leaders and to secure funding for his news network? I asked them to be transparent. I said, I will correct the record if you release these financial receipts to show who actually paid for these trips. They don't want to release the documentation. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that when Tucker Carlson is soliciting funding from Islamic individuals traveling to the Arab world, all of a sudden he's developed a very anti-Israel, anti-Jewish perspective. And who is he attacking? He's attacking President Trump's Jewish supporters. He's attacking evangelicals, the evangelical base of the GOP. He did an interview recently, Ariel, where he said that evangelicals, Christian Zionists, I mean, that's what it means to be an evangelical. Okay. You are a Christian who believes that Israel has a right to exist. Israel is central to Christianity. We know this. Why is Tucker Carlson proclaiming that Christian Zionists are the most evil people, the worst people in the world? Does that mean that Christian Zionists are worse than Chinese communists? Does that mean that Christian Zionists are worse than Nazis? Does that mean that Christian Zionists are worse than Islamic jihadists? Tucker Carlson knew what he was saying. And this is what really led to the outrage, because people want to know, how can Tucker Carlson go from having this very vibrant career on Fox News as a political commentator? He was known as kind of the voice of reason in the conservative movement. So many people welcomed him into their homes, and they view Tucker Carlson as a leading conservative thought leader. And now we're watching this so-called leading conservative thought leader normalize things like Hitler, right? This idea that Hitler was a great guy, World War II revisionism, saying that Sharia law really isn't so bad. And if you've been to an Islamic country, they're actually more safe than American cities. So why shouldn't we have Sharia law? Inviting Marjorie Trader Green on his show to talk about how amazing Zoran Mamdani is simply because Mamdani said he didn't want to go to Israel. Is that what we're judging candidates on now? Whether or not they are anti-Israel or they're fostering anti-Jewish rhetoric or anti-Christian rhetoric? It's very alarming, because now what you've seen is this obsession. I like to call it Israel derangement syndrome. And I've talked about this extensively, where the only thing people want to talk about now, Ariel, when you log online or when you watch any of these podcasts that you mentioned, it's an obsessive focus on Israel. And I just want to know, how central is Israel to the life of every single American who's just simply trying to get by? Most Americans are not preoccupied with Israel 24/7 like all of these podcasters. They're worried about being able to put gas in their car, put food on their table, take care of their children, pay their mortgage. So what are we doing here? Why is it that every single conservative podcaster now seems to want to only talk about Israel and whether or not the United States should cut off aid to Israel, or whether or not there's global Jewry? That's what Tucker Carlson was talking about during his podcast with Nick Fuentes, this concept of global Jewry. What does this serve other than the absolute erosion of MAGA and the deterioration and the fracturing, Ariel, of the MAGA base? We're going into the midterms. Whose interest does it serve to say that President Trump is controlled by Israel, that he's controlled by a foreign nation? Claims that both Nick Fuentes and Marjorie Trader Green and Tucker Carlson have all either alluded to or directly said, and Thomas Massey as well.